There is a glass of water sitting on my counter that I haven't touched a filter for. No pump, no tablets, no electricity, no UV light, and no expensive cartridge that needs replacing every 3 months. It is just a piece of copper and a piece of zinc sitting at the bottom of the container together. That is it. And the science behind why that works is one of the most well-documented, most suppressed, and most consistently ignored pieces of knowledge in the entire history of water treatment. It has a formal name. It has been peer-reviewed hundreds of times. Ancient civilizations used it before anyone understood why it worked, and the entire bottled water and filtration industry has a direct financial interest in making sure you never think about it. I am going to show you the science, the history, and the exact build. And I am going to be completely honest with you about what it does and what it doesn't do. Because the honest version of the story is genuinely extraordinary enough that it doesn't need a single word of exaggeration. Did you know that copper kills bacteria the way antibiotics do? Except bacteria cannot develop resistance to it. Antibiotics work by targeting specific biological pathways in bacterial cells. Bacteria mutate. They find workarounds. That is the entire antibiotic resistance crisis. Copper doesn't target a pathway. It attacks everything simultaneously. The cell membrane, the proteins, the DNA, and the respiratory system all at once. There is no pathway to mutate around. There is no resistance mechanism that works against a metal that destroys the cell's structural integrity from multiple directions at the same time. This effect has a name, the oligodynamic effect. It was formally discovered and documented in 1893 by Swiss botanist Carl Wilhelm von Nageli, who observed that metal ions, even in trace concentrations, were lethal to microorganisms. He published his findings. The scientific community understood them. And then cheap chlorination arrived and municipal water treatment was built around a chemical process, not a metal one. Not because copper stopped working, but because chlorine was easier to sell and easier to scale. The research never stopped, though. A study published in Science Direct demonstrated that copper devices can reduce bacterial populations by 99.999% in as little as 4 to 8 hours. Other research found that copper pots achieve complete elimination of all tested pathogens within 4 hours, with a 100% reduction maintained at 8 and 24 hours. This includes E. coli, Salmonella, Shigella, and Vibrio cholerae, the bacterium responsible for cholera. It also includes MRSA, the antibiotic-resistant staph infection killing people in hospitals. All of them are gone from contact with a metal that costs $2 at a hardware store. The history of this goes back further than most people realize. Ancient Egyptian texts from around 1600 BCE reference the use of copper vessels for storing water and treating wounds. The Ayurvedic medical tradition in India, the world's oldest continuously practiced medical system with roots going back over 5,000 years, specifically prescribes storing drinking water in copper vessels overnight before consuming it. The practice has a Sanskrit name, Tamra Jal, meaning copper water. It was not a belief. It was an observed clinical practice refined over centuries that modern peer-reviewed science has now confirmed works exactly the way Ayurvedic practitioners said it did. And here is the detail that stops me every time. Researchers at Battelle Columbus Laboratories conducted a comprehensive literature search in 1973, tracing the history of copper's bactericidal properties across 312 scientific citations spanning 1892 to 1973. 312 peer-reviewed citations, 80 years of consistent documentation, and not one municipal water authority recommended copper vessel storage to its residents. Not one filtration company mentioned it. Not one survival guide included it as a primary method because you cannot sell copper the way you sell a Brita filter that needs a new cartridge every 2 months. Now, here is where zinc enters the picture and why copper and zinc together are more powerful than either one alone. When two different metals sit in water in contact with each other, they create what is called a galvanic cell, a tiny natural battery. Electrons flow from one metal to the other through the water. That electron flow accelerates the release of ions from both metals into the surrounding water. More ions are released faster. The combination of copper ions and zinc ions hitting bacterial cells simultaneously creates a synergistic effect. Each one disrupts different cellular systems at the same time. The result is faster kill rates and broader spectrum coverage than copper alone. Zinc is also independently antimicrobial. It attacks bacterial enzyme systems and disrupts the proteins bacteria use for cell division. And unlike copper, which has a warm reddish tone, zinc's antimicrobial action tends to target different bacterial strains, filling gaps in coverage. Together, they cover more ground faster. The cost of both metals combined is under $2. A small piece of copper pipe from any hardware store plumbing section, and a galvanized zinc bolt or fitting. Both are available at Home Depot, Lowe's, or any hardware store off the shelf today. Here is how the bill goes together. Clean your copper piece thoroughly with white vinegar and a cloth to remove any surface oxidation or grease. You want the clean metal surface in contact with the water, not a layer of grime blocking ion release. Do the same with your zinc piece. Rinse both with clean water. Place both pieces in the bottom of your water container, a glass pitcher, a ceramic vessel, or a stainless steel pot. Anything that isn't plastic. Plastic containers can leach their own compounds into water and aren't recommended for long-term storage. Regardless of what is in them, let the copper and zinc pieces touch each other or lie in close proximity to allow the galvanic reaction to operate. Fill with water, cover the container, and leave it for a minimum of 6 to 8 hours. Overnight is the standard recommendation across both the scientific literature and the Ayurvedic tradition. In the morning, the water has been treated. Surface area matters. The more copper and zinc surface exposed to the water, the faster and more thorough the ion release. A rolled-up piece of copper mesh, a coiled length of copper wire, or several small copper pipe sections laid in the bottom of a 5-liter pitcher will outperform a single flat coin-sized piece in the same container. Think surface area, not weight. Here is the one thing people get wrong. They expect it to work like a filter. It doesn't filter. It purifies biologically. It kills bacteria. It reduces viruses. It does not remove sediment, heavy metals, agricultural chemicals, fluoride, or physical particulates. If your water source is murky or chemically contaminated, river water near agricultural land or water with visible color or odor from industrial sources, physical filtration needs to happen first. Run the water through a bottle filter or through a cloth and sand layer to remove physical matter. Then, let the copper and zinc do the biological work overnight. One honest note that belongs here and that most videos on this topic skip. The Ayurvedic practice of copper vessel storage is intended for enhancing already potable water, not for purifying water contaminated with severe waterborne pathogens at very high concentrations. For everyday tap water improvement, stored water that might pick up bacteria over time, camping or hiking water from relatively clean sources, or grid-down scenarios where you're working with water that's been treated but not stored safely, this is extraordinarily effective. For water pulled from a heavily contaminated source after a flood or a sewage event, filter it first, then use the copper and zinc treatment as a secondary layer, not a standalone solution. Used correctly, it is one of the most powerful passive water treatment tools ever documented. Used incorrectly as a substitute for filtration, when filtration is needed, it is incomplete. Understand the difference, and you have a tool that ancient civilizations trusted with their lives, that 312 peer-reviewed studies confirm, and that costs $2 from a hardware store. The thing about this that keeps sitting with me is how aggressively it has been ignored. The World Health Organization estimates that 2.2 billion people globally lack access to safely managed drinking water. Contaminated water causes an estimated 485,000 diarrheal deaths every year according to WHO data, the majority of them children under 5. The metals that address the bacterial component of that problem have been studied for over a century, are available globally, are inexpensive enough that even the most resource-limited communities can access them, and require no electricity, no infrastructure, and no supply chain. The copper vessel pilot programs that have been run in rural India, Bangladesh, and parts of Africa have demonstrated meaningful reductions in waterborne illness in communities that implemented them. The knowledge is there. The evidence is there. What's missing is the financial incentive for anyone with a marketing budget to put it in front of people. A $2 piece of copper pipe doesn't generate recurring revenue. A filtration system with proprietary cartridges does. I don't know what your situation is or why you're watching this. Maybe you're building towards something off-grid, and water is the piece that worries you most. Maybe the tap water in your area has been in the news, and you want something that works without depending on infrastructure. Maybe you're the kind of person who reads about how ancient civilizations solve problems without electricity and wonders what else they figured out that we forgot. Maybe you just found this at midnight following a question you couldn't let go of. It doesn't matter. The science is 5,000 years old and was peer-reviewed last decade. Now you know how it works. Take care, and see you in the next one. If this story about the hidden potential of simple metals has changed the way you look at the water in your home, please subscribe and like the channel. We are dedicated to uncovering the history and science that they have tried to keep buried. Help us spread this knowledge to plant the seeds for a better future. Our next treasure of forgotten wisdom will be opening soon.